Hi, my name is Oval L. Miller Sr. I'm a recovering heroin addict. Kept my expectation for today. I've been clean and dry 30 plus years. I went to treatment at a white middle-class American male treatment model in the West County of St. Louis City. It was called St. John's Mercy Hospital, the Edgewood program. I was treated for my heroin addiction by utilizing 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today I'm going to share with you how that process helped me attain my sobriety and maintain it for 30 plus years. Let's start first with step one. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. I had a very difficult time with this step early on in my recovery while I was still there in inpatient, because I couldn't understand how I was powerless over alcohol. I wasn't willing to admit that alcohol had caused me a problem in my life. So I was resistant, in denial. Because I drank every day. I've never been drunk, never been passed out. So I didn't think it contributed. It was the heroin that contributed to my illness. I was convinced of that. Not looking at anything else other than if I could quit shooting heroin, then everything else would be okay. But then I started reflecting back after some time. This didn't happen quickly. It took me some time. I'm talking about a year and a half that I just was complying. I didn't drink, I didn't use drugs, I didn't do anything, but I still hadn't truly accepted the powerlessness, because this is a process. Later on, I was able to identify that the powerlessness didn't necessarily mean about the heroin. It talked about, for me, the inability to influence others, or the inability to predict how other people would respond to me. Powerlessness, very difficult thing to accept, being a male, that you're powerless. Powerless indicates weakness, but it had nothing to do with that. It had something to do with my lack of integrity, my lack of being responsible, not being predictable, not being about the things that I say I was about. And so I was incapable of influencing other people in a positive way to be there for me. We all need each other. But see, that lack of powerlessness did not allow me to establish relationships, resources, things that could help me in my efforts to be self-sufficient. So once I understood that, yes, I am powerless, but there is a way for me to regain that power by doing several simple things. Being about who you say you're about, establishing an integrity, being responsible, being predictable, keeping expectations. Things that just required my willingness to change. And then things began to kind of smooth out for me as I started the recovery process and my road back to having power. I remember my sister saying something to me once. I told her that I was financially broke, that I didn't have any money, and she says, that's because you don't have friends. When you have friends, how could you be broke if they have resources? The type of friendships that you're trying to acquire that would not allow you to suffer if they could help. Step one is a two-part step also, unmanageability. My life was totally unmanageable. Nobody responded to me the way I thought they should. My ex-wife didn't respond to me the way I thought she should. She should understand that I'm having a rough time, that I'm a black man living in America. That's how come I can't pay the bills, I can't pay the utility bills. I can't do anything a man is supposed to do because my life had become totally unmanageable. Because everything depended on somebody else doing something for me. So I was able to grasp that after a period of time that I could manage my life if I did what I was supposed to do first, and other people, majority of the time, would respond in kind. So step one was that first part of my recovery. I got that under my belt. But it took me a while. You know, I believe there are 3 stages to this. Complying, you got to first start doing it, and then eventually you learn how to comply properly, which means that you wake up, you know you got to do this, and you go and do it. You read your meditation book, you go through your rituals, and there were rituals that I adhered to for 18 months before I just really felt comfortable with my sobriety. Step 2, came to believe in a power greater than self that could restore me to sanity. That wasn't too difficult because I knew that the behavior that I was displaying was representative of a person who's insane, taking crazy chances, unhealthy things that I was doing, using syringes in a shooting gallery where there are 4 or 5 syringes in a glass, and I go and get one of them out and use a rationale that once I cook the dope up and the dope gets hot, it kills all the germs. And once that insanity part was explained to me, it didn't mean that Oval Miller was mentally crazy. It meant that he was doing unhealthy things, unclean things. Sanity comes from the word sanitize, which means clean. So, you know, if I stopped doing those things, then my chances of being healthy and productive would be enhanced tenfold. So, you know, it's not hard to convince a person off the street that, you know, you're robbing and stealing and taking a chance on going to jail because you stole $100 and somebody give you two years in jail. Are you stealing merchandise that costs $500? You can only sell it for $125. And then when you get caught, you go to the penitentiary and make 2 cents an hour some places. You know. But so it wasn't that difficult. Now the third step was one that I wrestled with a little bit. I was raised in a Christian home. Went to parochial schools all my life. Studied the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Made a decision to turn our will and life with the care of God as we understand Him. You know, wasn't that difficult, but it was something to turn your will over, to understand that the things you were doing is part of being destructive, and how do you change that around, and quit blaming God for everything that happens to you. I remember looking back on my addiction, the crazy, insane things I did, stealing from my parents, misusing people, robbing people, taking from relatives, not being responsible, and all that. How could that be a will of God for me? But those things happened in my life that brought me to this point in my life too. So I remember my daughter asking me a question, said, "Dad, if you could change anything in your life, what would you change?" And I said, "Nothing." This was after some years of being clean and dry, working my program. I said, "Nothing." She says, "I don't understand. What do you mean? You wouldn't even change the fact that you weren't there when we were coming up?" And I said, "Absolutely nothing." I said, "I regret not being there, but I wouldn't change it because that was necessary to bring me to this point in time in my life where I'm working my program of recovery and it's working for me. It's working for me. So I wouldn't want to take a chance and change anything that would put that in jeopardy from where I am today, a peace of mind and a serenity and a focus on who I am and comfortable being who I am today. You know, first 3 steps, I can't, God can, I think I'll let Him. It's simple, very simple, but it's very difficult for some people if they're not able to get to that point where they are humble enough. Being humble means that you're not always right. Other people have an opinion, and you should be humble enough or willing to listen. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. I hear people say, it takes months and months to do that. I didn't have months and months. I had 2 or 3 days. It wasn't a difficult task because everybody has a value system. You know, your value system is your morals that you live by. You know, honesty, being truthful, being kind, loving, and all that. Those are part of your value systems. By the time I got to treatment, it wasn't but 1 or 2 value systems that I even cherished. I violated relationship with my mom and dad, with my family. Why would it take me 3 or 4 days to write everything down that I had done, I got some positive things, but they right now they're being overshadowed by the negative things that I've done. So when I start listing out my moral inventory, I'm listing out what I have invested today about me. So I went right back to the crisis that created the opportunity for me to come to treatment. And it wasn't robbing, it wasn't stealing, it wasn't going to jail or anything like that. It was that moral value that I was violating, and that was the relationship between me and my children. I know a lot of people who go to treatment for the craziest things, They didn't get up and comb their hair that morning. They didn't shave. They didn't have clean clothes, whatever. And then, that forces them to do something different. The window of availability opens and closes quickly. Whenever you find yourself in that position where you are hurting now and hurting internally, you'll do something different. That's the way it was with me. Standing on the street corner, golly, somebody asked my children to describe their father. What would they say? He's a drug addict, he's a convict, he's not a good dad, he can't be depended on. That was what was the last straw that brought me to treatment. Now, there were other things too that led up to that finalization, but that was the one that made me get on the bus, ignore everything else, and say, this is it. I can't, in 52 hours here, going through heroin withdrawal to come to treatment too. I'd never been to treatment, so didn't know anything about that. Once I completed my 4th step and got ready to present my step 5, admit to God, yourself, and another human being the exact nature of your wrongs, it wasn't too difficult. I talked about it as honest as I possibly could. Having been in treatment now 3.5 weeks, doing the 5th step, and I had a great guy sitting across from me, Father John Mason. He was there, very comfortable to talk with, easy to talk with, as he asked me to explain and elaborate on certain things. It was so strange. I remember one of the things that stuck out to me in my 5th step was that when I was 12, 13 years old, some of the fellows and I, 3 or 4 other guys, young guys, we stole a bicycle from this guy, from his daughter. And his daughter's name was Emily, never forget it. And we were up at my house taking the parts off the bike, fixing our own bikes up. And he walked up, and wasn't the fact, the bike was gone, we just had the parts. And he said to all of us sitting there on the back porch, he said, I worked overtime for a whole month to save the money to buy Emily her first bike, and somebody took it and stole it from her. I hope they enjoy it, because a lot of pain and suffering went into it, and she is hurt bad. Now, think of 12, 13 years old. I was 35 years old when I came to treatment. 20-some years, that was on my mind when I did my 5th step. Now, some people say, well, it was terribly important, because that was something I had done to violate another man and to take from his family something that he really truly wanted for his daughter. And that was part of that whole process. I remember during my 5th step, Father John said to me, Oval, you're going to make it, you're going to be okay. And I'm saying, Father, why are you saying that? I've never been to treatment. Everybody I've seen go to treatment, use them again, come back out and use. What's going to be different with me? He says, because now you know that there's another way. Before, you didn't have any real choices. You traveled a route that was most familiar to you, living in your community, dealing with the people. That's how we dealt with things. My father was an alcoholic. He was trying to medicate his pain of hopelessness, and I followed in his shoes. And he gave me an example. He says, you're like a drowning man. You've gone down once, twice. The 3rd time as your head goes under the water, so you grab hold to this hand hovering over this sea of death, imminent death, and it pulls you up out of that sea of death and plants your feet on solid ground. That's the program of recovery that you're trying to adapt to now and implement in your life. You won't go back now, because you know that there's another way. If you do, you will have made a moral, conscious decision to give up on life. So I walked out of his office and went to my room, and was very emotional, and I asked God for the gift of sobriety, and that if he would grant me that gift of sobriety, I'd spend the rest of my life helping others navigate the barriers to recovery. God kept his promise and I kept mine. Step 6 is we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, numerous defects that we have, that we accumulate. We call them survival skills, defense mechanisms, but we always rationalize our behavior, the means produce the outcome that we say we want, and it never is fully valuable, what I'm saying, equal, but they were defects. And I always give example, the new life as I started it 30 plus years ago, every new thing was a new chain, new link in this chain, the chain of life. I've got 30 plus chains in this chain. There's occasion when you're going to get to that point. There's something that you want to hang on to. If it's lusting, gambling, greed, or something that you feel like that's negotiable. But always keep in mind that that link that's not strong, when stress of life hits you, is going to be the first one that goes, because life is like up and down, up and down. A man told me the challenge of life is to live between the ups and the downs. Not to be so high on life that you're not grounded to reality, nor allow yourself to go so low that you begin to wallow in self-pity and feel sorry for yourself, but to find a comfortable medium in between. So when stress hits, the first thing that goes is what? The weak link in the chain. So you have to be conscious of that when you're doing your step 6. Step 6 is we're entirely ready. That's the key to that step, entirely ready. It's not a step of perfection, it's a step of progress. You want to constantly be working on it constantly. 30 plus years later, I'm still working on that. Working on that impulsiveness, working on insecurities, and just working on me, period, my own issues that I deal with, fear of authority, those things I'm still working on. That's why step 7 is so critical, that I'm humbly asking God each and every day to help me with these shortcomings. Help me with them, help me identify them mid-sight. Help me eventually get to a point that I see the problem have foresight into it. Don't want to always continue having hindsight, looking back, oh, I shouldn't have did that, or I shouldn't have did that. So 6 and 7, that's where we are there. Some people don't understand that. 7 says, humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. You're addressing the shortcomings are those defects of character. That's what shortcomings mean. Validation from other people. You need it badly, but you haven't validated yourself. So, step 8, made a list of all the people we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. That comes from the hurts and amends from step 4. Because during your moral inventory, you have to put down the people you hurt. One of them was Emily and her family, and the hurt I caused them. There were many others, but I mean, that was significant because it was on my mind, and I couldn't get it off. 25 years later, I still was thinking about it. So, you made the list, and some people want to put God on there. God, it's all right to put that on there. I didn't put that on there because God resides within me. So my amends had to be the self. If God resides within me, then I need to make amends to the temple that God resides within. Now that's me, things I've done to my parents, taking money from them, the neglect I've given to my children, my feeling sorry for me because things didn't turn out the way I thought they should, and the distancing myself from them, making excuses, blaming other people and all that. So the list was there, and I was willing and ready to make amends. I made some of those while I was in treatment. We should encourage our clients to start making amends while they're in treatment. Have a plan laid out what you're going to do. I reached back out to my children and asked for their forgiveness and started the amend process 30 plus years ago. Still making amends. I'm the head of my family. I'm the patriarch of this family. My children have given me that respect, and I treasure that. I treasure that. But it didn't just easily come. You've heard me say over and over again, one of the things, when I talk to my daughter, I've changed. What does that mean, Dad? I don't break promises. Well, I didn't say I'm not going to break the next promise. I said I don't break promises anymore. So, that continues on until I'm no longer here. We're looking at step 9, made amends wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Certain things you don't need to go tell nobody just because you want to cleanse your soul. why would you want to create hurt? A good friend of mine, Michael, tells me all the time. I mean, we were in our conversation over the years. It's one phrase he always brings up: "Truth out of season is worse than a lie." In your effort to cleanse yourself, you dump all your dirt on somebody else. That don't make any sense. So you have to be careful with that. It's just not making amends by replacing Emily's bike. Emily, 50-some years old now. Replacing a bike wouldn't do nothing. But how do you make those amends? One of the things that I did was commit to going to the penitentiary at Pacific every Wednesday, and I did it for almost 2 years. Talking with the fellows, spent 2.5 hours down there. Well, you know what Pacific is out by Six Flags. I drove there every Wednesday night and talked with the fellows about recovery. And I still do things now, periodically, over the years, continuing to make amends. The greatest amends is for me is for me to continue loving self. Because I do believe in God, and I know that if God resides within me, I love God, and I will do the godly things. So, step 10, taking a personal inventory every single day, going home at night thinking, have I said something that hurt somebody by no intention? Never to deliberately hurt anybody. But sometimes in your efforts to be responsible and predictable, people will perceive your reaction or response to them as being mean and cruel, and when it's not meant that way. But you have to do an inventory of yourself. My daughter and I always talk every day about going home at night and thinking about my day. And did I say something to hurt somebody? Did somebody misconstrue what I meant? Because, that's not in me to be vengeful, to hurt somebody. I don't have no time for that. I'm enjoying my life too much to waste my time or let anybody rent space in my head in a negative manner. Whenever you're holding resentment, I don't like her, or I don't like him, they think they something else, so on and so on. Whatever they think about themselves, that's them. What do you think about yourself? That's the personal inventory. Step 11, soft prayer and meditation, establish a conscious contact with God, asking only for knowledge of His will for me and the power to carry that out. That's a constant. I believe everything I've achieved in the last 30 plus years has been God's will for me. And there have been some guidelines that went along with that. There's been some things that were required of me to put me in position. Tests and trials and tribulations, trying to understand why people didn't like you. They don't have to have a reason not to like you. They just don't like you because they've never learned to love self. You don't have time to hate anybody, not like anybody when you're busy loving self. If you enjoy you don't want anything to get into your mind that will rob you of that time. We forget about that. We need each other. I need you, you need me. I am because we are, the old African proverb so brilliantly states. But we don't get to that point because we're so busy doing something else. But the prayer and the meditation, I remember talking, again to Michael, and he was telling me about, your prayers, your food, clothing, shelter. Food, clothing, shelter. And being able to, an understanding of God, a spiritual awakening, who you are. I am because I understand God. I wasn't taught that way coming up. Taught, God is a vicious God, fire and brimstone God. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Many times, if I deserved to be punished, and He could have, and the God of my understanding could have punished me if He didn't love me. But He loved me, so He allowed me to learn from that mistake and be able to carry the message that I got from that mistake of doing wrong to others to keep them, hopefully, from repeating the same thing. That's what thought through prayer and meditation means. Step 12 is the only step in Alcoholics Anonymous that gives you a directive, and having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. A spiritual awakening, which is energizing. You show it in your behavior, practice it in all your affairs, follow the regimen of what it means to say, I am because we are. Reach out to other people when you can, and not be so quickly to talk about somebody's misusing you and all that. You know, you don't have nothing for nobody to misuse you over. You know, I remember I had a guy once took some money from me, $40,000. You know, and I was so angry and mad that he had taken advantage of me and he did this and that. You know, and my daughter came to me and said, you know, Dad, I didn't come from California to be with you and work with you for you to end up in the penitentiary over money. Oh boy, can you imagine that? Over money. We can make some more, Dad. Oh my God. Boy, out of the mouths of the children, the wisdom that comes. We can make some more, and we have made more. Let him deal with how he is going to make amends for what he did to create some uncomfortability with 40 people. You know, that's on him. You know, Mama said for every penny you throw away, you got to go back and get it. So for every wrong you did, you got to repay it, you know. For every car I broke into, I'm paying that. You know, I woke up one morning, my window was broke out of my car in my backyard. I had to repair it. Cost me $250. And 2 weeks later, when it was broke out in my car in my backyard, it cost me another $250. Another time, it broke out again in my driveway in the front yard. It cost me another $250. So I learned a lesson. You know, don't lock the car. You know, don't leave anything in the car that somebody may feel that it's worth something. You know, I mean, there are lessons to be learned. Start, you know, to carry the message. The message is carried in your behavior. The message is carried how you interact with other people. You're going to work in the field of alcoholism, but you're going to act like that you are still out there sick and need treatment for yourself. You know, Father Martin, I met Father Martin once and had lunch with him, and he talked about this thing called counseling or psychiatry or psychology. You know, it takes a very special person to do this kind of work. You know, just because you go to school and get your credentials, and it don't mean that you're suited for this kind of work. It takes a very special person, you know. And some people don't understand it, but you know, only the sickest of the sick can work with the sickest of the sick. Not the wellest of the well, but the sickest of the sick, who've acknowledged that they're sick, can be affected with the sickest of the sick. You gotta understand what I'm saying. A counselor, a psychiatrist, or a psychologist chooses this field because it provides objectivity. Objectivity. People are not people, they're objects. And that objectivity provides emotional distance. Emotional distance, nothing is connected. And the distance provides a safety zone for the fears that they themselves personally have and don't want anybody to identify. The fear of self. Not satisfied with who they are. Huh? That's deep, isn't it? Counseling, psychiatry, or psychology provides objectivity for people who are not in touch with self. That provides them emotional distance, that nothing is emotionally connected to them. That provides them the space that they need to deal with the fears that are inside of them. See, the only way you can be an effective counselor is you realize that you have absolutely nothing to do with this client's recovery. Absolutely nothing. You are a listening board. I just told you about my process. That's how I've worked my process for 30 plus years. I went to treatment one time. But I was ready, humble enough to say, I don't know what I'm doing. And the first thing, you've got to become important. You know, if you're going to be an effective counselor, see, an effective counselor, you really don't have to say much. Because if you are in touch with self and you believe in self, people can read that through you just by being in the room with you. If you're phony, they see that. If you're judgmental, they see that. They see it. We were talking the other day about how do you use the steps with things that you abhor, that you don't like, you know. I mean, I've had clients that have sodomized their children. I had a man in here once that sodomized his daughter. She was 5 or 6 years old, you know. And he was sitting there and he says, well, you know, do you understand? I said, no, I don't. I don't understand. I don't have to understand. I don't understand. Well, I was drunk when I did it. I was high when I did it. I've been high. You know, I've never been drunk, but I've been high. I never thought about doing nothing like that. But I owed him positive regard. I owed him genuineness. And my question to him after he shared, how does that feel for you today? And he went to talk about how painful it is to know that he did that to someone he loved. Hey, sometimes people do things they don't act. It's not planned and plotted out. But he was painful. How long do you think it's going to take for him to make amends for that? How will he ever make amends for it? The damage to his daughter, you know. But he is worthy of you listening to him and helping him devise a plan to start the process. Start the process. There were many guys, you know, people have a problem with homosexuality and all that. I have no problem with homosexuality. I mean, that's what you choose, the lifestyle you have. That's your lifestyle. I mean, what am I going to tell you? I don't like you because you are homosexual? That's crazy. That's crazy. You know, I would have to believe that you woke up one morning and made a moral conscious decision that you were going to be a homosexual. I don't think people do that. Who would want to go through all those, the changes that people send them to because they're different? They're different. You know, I mean, I heard some guys say, man, I don't want to mess with me homosexual. Well, what's that got to do with you? Well, he'll try to turn me being a homosexual. Are you that weak that somebody could turn you into a homosexual? Only way that I would give any validation to your fears is that when you were around men, you had a sexual arousal, then you got something to be concerned about. You need to make a choice what you want to do. But not just tell me now, all of a sudden now, that you got a fear of Joe because he's homosexual and he might try to turn you into a homosexual. That's crazy. We got clients, staff members here who've been molested and abused and all that. You know, my wife was a victim of abuse when she was a child coming up. You know, it has dictated a lot of things in her life over the years. The distancing that she's had. The fear of self-disclosure that she's had. I'm not telling you none of her secrets. You know, she'll talk about it today because she's had that type of growth. But to hold on to it, to give power to a villain who came in and abused you and misused you should end when you're in treatment. Bring a closure to that. That's it. You know, I no longer will allow you to have power over me, robbing me of the serenity and peace of mind that I deserve. You know, you deal with your own. You know. A lot of times people believe that that's what they need to do. They got to go and do this and that and hate people and all that. I don't have time to hate. You know. Right today, you know, I ask you all to pull these things together to step, because the steps are the process that we have. Some of you actually have asked for a job here, to work here, and been here for some time, and have no idea about the steps. No idea about the steps. And this is the I just told you, I'm a product of the 12 steps of AA. 30 plus years of sobriety. Gaining power. Able to talk with people and influence people to believe in me through this process. Why would I have to debate with you about the process? Why wouldn't you be hungry to do it? I was talking to Sid today about, you know, Sid plays the bass guitar. And I was telling him, I said, have you ever played in a band where one of the band members is playing faster than everybody else, or playing slower, or he or she can't read music? He said, yeah. I said, it's uncomfortable. He said, yeah, the sound is terrible. That's what life's about, you know. I want you to feel the way I feel. We have a mechanism, a strategy that will assist our clients in changing the negative, painful life that they've been exposed to and living with, to a point in time where they are comfortable with self and ready to deal with whatever comes at them. You know, I think that's what we were before the emancipation and afterwards, 400 years. How did our moms and dads and ancestors deal with the degradation, humiliation, and horrendous behavior, physical trauma they went through with, and still believe in a tomorrow. Still believe in a tomorrow. We got young people killing each other because they don't believe in a tomorrow. Somebody asked me, so what's behind it? It's easy, it's simple. People without a purpose don't care about today. Their day or your day. So it's critically important for us to get that message over to people. There is no need to be desperate and fearful. You have a track record of ancestors who dealt successfully with it to the point that you are here today. So that when I ask you to do a 12-step thing, that's what I'm talking about doing. I want you to do it that way. I want you to talk about it. Now you heard mine today. I don't know if you felt it or not, but each one of those examples I was giving, well, they were personal examples of how I work my program. Now you can imagine that if somebody tells you, hey man, the old man done relapsed, the first thing you're going to start thinking about, well, he stopped acting like he had the message. His spiritual light was dimming. He quit praying and asking God for help. He quit doing his personal inventory every day. He stopped making amends. His list wasn't real. He wasn't humble. He didn't ask God for nothing. He kept all the defects of character. He lied in his 5th step. He wasn't real on the 4th step. The 3rd step, he wasn't turning his will over to nobody. He was in charge. He continued to be insane. And the end result is he back out there again using drugs and alcohol to medicate the pain of hopelessness, lack of purpose, and inability to love self. Hey guys, thank you. Let's talk about it now.